Did you know that most businesses fail to achieve their financial goals due to inaccurate forecasting? Also, many businesses, because of inaccurate forecasting, purely will have a financial failure. So they might have to close their doors because they did not have an accurate forecast and they cannot make decisions in their business in order to help facilitate reduction of costs or know where their backlog is on their projects, for example. In construction in particular, forecasting can be a pretty complex process. So first you have to know and you have to rely on your project managers to provide you some accurate project forecasting. So they need to know how they're doing on their job, what they have for remaining costs to complete, and they need to be honest and they need to not be afraid to share when they have a situation on their existing projects. So accurate project forecasting that feeds into your company forecast is one of the major keys that you have to have before you do an overall company forecast. Also, you need to be proactive and sit down with your team even now for next year. If you have a calendar year of 1/1, a fiscal year of 1/1, planning out and talking with your team, your accounting team, your people that make decisions for your business on costs. Make sure you understand those outflows that are going to happen, what your dues and subscriptions are, what, your G&A expenses are. So anyone that drives a specific budget line in your business, you want to make sure you meet with them, you get an accurate budget for those specific expenses in your business. Okay. So let's assume you've done those things and now you are in the middle of a year and you need to know monthly, quarterly, how am I doing? What is the year going to look like? So you can make some decisions if the year isn't going as well as expected, or if it is going better than expected. Maybe you can put some capital outlays, some capital expenditures that you've always, some equipment you might need to buy, or maybe you're not doing as well as expected and you need to, potentially reduce some labor costs or figure out other ways to reduce costs in your G&A expenses area. Okay, so this tool is going to dive into how to reforecast, and I've done a monthly layout here, reforecast every month using your actuals and using a budget that you've set from the beginning of the year, and then adjusting it with what's called a forecast. So this layout here is 8 months of actuals that have already happened in 2023. For example, January through August. And then I'm going to reforecast out September through December based on the knowledge I have now that I'm in the middle of September. Okay, for an example. So the tool that I'm using is called Velixo. Velixo connects with Sage Intacct and Excel to push and pull data from Intacct. So what I have built here is a monthly actual P&L with a forecast that will push back up into Intacct. Okay. So basically what I've done is I have pulled in monthly my P&L through August, and then I'm going to reforecast out these September through December monthly columns and push that back up into Intacct. Okay. So that I can get some reporting in Intacct if, I want to house it up there. You also could just house it in Excel and use this purely down here in the Excel file if you don't want to push the data back to Intacct. One of the key reasons, however, to push the data back up into Intacct is if you have certain people in your company that are responsible for certain budget lines. So I've got a marketing department and I want them to be able to see what they have actually spent and what we have decided, whoever's putting this forecast together, what has been decided to be available for funds September through December. Then on a dashboard in Intact or through an automation of a report that could be sent out, you could set out a marketing department forecast, and it can be all automated and Intact. So if you push this data back up into Intact in these columns here from September through December, then you're going to have visibility across your team for, cohesiveness in your company, making sure everyone's on the same page without having to manually send out 5, 6, 7 different reports to display your departmental forecasts for those specific departments. Okay, so I'm going to go through an overview of how this tool works, and then we'll dive into the setup of how to get it functioning and working in Intact and Excel. So the first thing I'm going to show is I am connected to Velixo through my login here. So I'm going to have this connection manager. I'm logged in, and I'm going to hit refresh here. And what it's going to do is it's going to refresh these actual columns. It's going to update the data with information that has already been input into Intact. So my billings, my costs, my G&A expenses is going to refresh here. So I'm going to hit this refresh button, and we're going to refresh this current sheet. You're going to see over here that it's working. It's going to tell us when it's done calculating. Okay, now I'm done calculating. I'm going to close this to have some more room. And now I want to reforecast out these remaining months. However, I am not sure what I had originally budgeted, because that is something that would be useful to know, especially in your G&A expenses. So if I haven't really changed anything, for example, in my marketing expense area, and I've talked to my team and I know that, okay, I can reforecast out based on the budget that I had originally loaded for the entire year at the beginning of the year. So how this tool is built is if I type budget up here, it's going to take a second, and it's going to load my budgeted amounts that I set in my original budget at the beginning of the year. Okay, so let's say I go down here to marketing expense, and I know that I want to just use the budget amount for my forecasted amounts for the remainder of the year. Okay, so I can go like this, and I can change all columns to budget and see if did I set $2,500 every month for the remainder of the year. Yes, I sure did. So that's what I want to use. Okay, so let's say that I know quite a few categories. I'm going to use the original budget. Then I want to push that back up into Intact as my forecasted number. So let's say it's a chunk right here that I know all of these accounts I want to keep as the original budget. Okay, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it as values over here for a moment. I'm going to go up here, change these to forecast. And I'm going to paste those back in. Okay, so now I have hard-coded my forecast numbers into the specific lines here. And I can then write these numbers back up into Intact through the perform write back function up here in the menu. So before you perform the write back, you're going to want to input your forecast numbers in all of the lines and columns that say forecast. So every amount has either a 0 or some number. Then you're going to perform the write back into Intact, and it's going to push these forecasts into this annual forecast write back to annual forecast. So it's an actual, it's a budget in the budget repository and Intacct. It's separate from the annual budget. So the original annual budget is separate from the annual forecast. Okay. You can also make multiple forecasts. So I can make a new one for each month if I wanted to, and push that forecast up into that month instead, so that I know what I forecasted prior. Okay. So this is one way to do the forecasting with the Velixo tool. You could also have a separate tab that has the actual annual budget that you could reference. You could lay this out a bit differently if you'd like. But what is nice about this is I can quickly switch this back to the budget, and it's going to keep my amounts that I hard coded in here. Okay. So one thing you could do is, I know I've set these, you could bold it or highlight them in a different color so that you're done with those. Okay. And it's not a formula. To quickly see that I'm done with those, I can bold those and it will stay. Okay. So let me change this back to forecast. And I can play with some more numbers in here, bold those, and I know I am done with those as well. Okay. So just a quick way to basically use Velixo, use Excel to forecast and play with some what if scenarios to see how your company will do overall for the year using those actuals and what you think you're going to do for the remainder of the year. Okay. So this tool is available to you through Banger. Reach out to us. We can walk you through the entire setup and show you how to also use the project forecasting that will then feed into your revenue and cost of sales in this area as well. So when your project managers forecast, it's going to drive quite a bit of this section up here. So we have a whole project forecasting series that you will want to look at as well on top of this company forecast tool. So again, reach out to us, respond to the video at the bottom, or reach out to us from our website, and we'd be more than happy to talk about this further or any other questions you have with the Velixo product.